Right, you're being recorded. Shh.
Today we're here in the case of, well, basically in euthanasia. Yeah, euthanasia from Greek is what means good death. Is the act of deliberate inducting the death of patient who.
Sorry, can I ask you to introduce yourself to the court, please?
Oh yeah, I'm.
And could you just speak a bit louder for the camera as well? Just speak a bit louder.
Shh. Yeah. So as I was saying, it's good death in order to, if I may quote here, death of a patient who is in severe pain and distress as a result of terminal or incurable illness. Yeah.
That's what you're saying. This is a case of.
No, I'm saying I'm saying what is euthanasia is, and we are here for passive euthanasia, what basically means that we are for withdrawing the treatment. Yeah, and to support to support this case, we can use European Convention on Human Rights Act 1950. Where it is stated two important arguments. The first is that doctor must not, and again, if I may quote here, must not force the treatment on the patient who is competent and refuse to consent, even if without care, the patient, even if without care, the patient will die.
That's interesting, Mr. Darren. Where in the convention do you get that from?
It's Act 2. Article 2.
Article 2. That's interesting.
Of the convention.
That's the right to life, isn't it?
Yeah. So basically.
Right to life. Okay.
Yeah. So the second is that if a patient is unable to express a doctor must act in the best interest of the patient. And as we know, our patient was a very active person, so there is one more reason for the passive euthanasia in this case. And as a reasoning, Bland demonstrated this doesn't mean that everything must be done to prolong the life of the patient. And Article 1 of Obligation to Respect Human Rights says, again I'm quoting here, the case of Earldale National Health Service Trust vs. Blunt, it was where the patient who was in the same situation as our patient and who was injured in Hillsborough football match on the 15th of April 1987, at the age of 17, was left in the persistent vegetable state for more than 3 years. So in reaching our conclusion, we rely on the
Yes, you want me to follow Bland, essentially, Mr. Darren?
Yes.
Can we check how long Mr. Hughes has been in a persistent vegetative state?
About, well, more or less a couple of years.
A couple of years. So you're saying that the prognosis is similarly hopeless, just as there was no prospect?
Well, yeah, if a patient was diagnosed with vegetative state, well, it basically means that it's incurable, and therefore there is no hope for him to recover in any reason whatsoever.
So it says you're saying this is kind of quality of life issue?
Yes, and we know that he was active. He had an active lifestyle. Therefore, we think that in his best interest would be withdrawing the treatment.
Because he won't recover that lifestyle then?
He wouldn't, yeah. That's what doctors say, yeah. So basically, doctors should be not liable for his death once they withdraw the treatment, because doctors are obliged to do wherever possible in the patient's interest, and as I mentioned before, it is going to be in the best interest of the patient to withdraw the treatment, as he will never recover his lifestyle.
That he will die is essentially irrelevant.
Well, we are saying that he should be allowed to die by natural death.
Yes, you're emphasising that that will be, he'll die from what, starvation, I suppose?
Well, as we know that passive euthanasia is not starvation, rather than he will be kept on some doses of food and water, but yeah, eventually he is going to die of starvation, but not as you were posing, I suppose, yeah.
So he's going to die of starvation slowly?
Yes, yes. Well, in a matter of weeks, yeah.
A matter of weeks. I suppose that was where I was going. It was going to how long it was going to take. Yes. Okay.
Not in a matter of months or years.
Okay, that's true. Yes, I look on the bright side of Sudan. Yes. Yes, look on the bright side of life. So that's okay.
We always have to.
Yes, fine. So is Derek. Okay. So yes, so very well. So you're saying that it's best interest, and I think you were saying that it was only justifiable for the doctor to treat him for so long as it was in his best interest.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So, if not in best interest, they should withdraw treatment.
Of course, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Just making sure I got down your submissions for your best interest. Should withdraw. Okay. No big doubt. Did you have further submissions, Clara?
Well, no, except that, yeah, as I said before, that if patient cannot express his views, we should act accordingly to his wishes, or according to comparison to his lifestyle before the diagnosis, which was enacted lifestyle. Yeah.
So you'd like me to make a declaration to that effect?
Yeah.
It is lawful for the NHS Trust to withdraw treatment.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Have silence in the gallery, please. Councillor. Could you introduce yourself first?
Good morning. My name is Fahima and I'm from Mr.
Ms. Fahima. Okay. Ms. Fahima, could I ask you to speak up a little so you're fully audible to all members of the public present? It's an important case. Lives at stake, so. Right, sorry, Ms. Fahima, please proceed.
Hello. Good morning. My name is Fahima and I am from Mr. Boogie. Yeah. We believe that. We at Mr. Boogie believe that Mr. Hughes should be allowed to die and that the court should allow it. His condition, it has been studied, it's been looked over, and there's no plausible way that he would survive. So, keeping in mind that his family are also suffering, that his family is going through this with him, so it's not just him going through this. He's in a vegetative state, and if we all look into that, there's no way that he will recover from this. So putting the government's money, the hospital, taxpayers, and the family's money and energy into this is just wasting a lot of people's time and energies, because if we just allowed him to die, even though the way it would happen is not really, it's not a nice way to die, but there's nothing else that we can do. We at the hospital, we also feel that if there was any other way we could help him, we would do that, because it's not morally right to let someone die this way, but it's also not morally right to make his family, his friends, the hospital, and everybody who's looking into this case suffer with him, because we have to think that the public is also looking at this and they're wondering, what if I was in that position? Would the courts make me go through this? Would they make my family suffer along with me?
That's
Because
an interesting point, Miss Bagel, isn't it? I was talking with Mr. Carrington about the pain and suffering or any of Mr. Hughes. Of course, you make the valuable point that we need to look at this holistically. What about family as well? You're saying that they are anxious about this situation.
his family would just like to say goodbye, because if we were in that position, I'm sure that no family wants to think, today's the day my brother will die, my son, my husband, my everything. Like, you can't know when somebody's going to die, and in choices like this, it's just not fair on the family, because they know that he's not coming back, and it's just putting them through more and more pain. I mean, for example, there was Airedale NHS Trust versus Blunt in 1993. Tony Blunt went through this he was in a vegetative state, I believe if I'm correct, for 3 years, and his family suffered through this with him, to where it got to a point where his family had to petition for his life support to be turned off, because they couldn't take their son being alive but he wasn't there. So it made it harder, and we don't want to make another family go through that. And the phrase vegetative state, if you just think about it, you have to know what it means, you have to understand it. And we at the hospital, we would not say, let this person die, if we didn't have a valid reason. I mean, there's thousands of people, millions around the world that are ill, and every doctor, every nurse, everyone working at the hospital tries their best to save their lives. But if there's no other hope, there's nothing else that we can do. And we're not doing this to be cruel, we're not doing this to just make everyone think, oh, we want him to die. We're doing this because it's what's best for him, because he's not going to get better.
It's a responsible clinical judgment. This is the doctor's judgment as professionals that this is the situation.
Yes, because the doctors, they do believe that he's not going to get better. And as the last conference was held, there was many of us who were still optimistic, but after that there was many tests done, and there's no way that he's going to live through this. I mean, his brain is still working, which is why his organs are still working, but that's the only thing that's keeping him alive right now.
Okay. So what do you say to Mr. Carrington's observation that he feels no pain, so he might as well carry on?
He feels no pain, but that doesn't mean he should live. That it just...
Why not? Please explain.
Because if he's not going to get better, why are we going to put people through this? Is there any reason that he should just stay in this persistent vegetative state for the rest of his life? I mean, for all we know, he could stay that way for, 30 years? And if he stayed... If he stayed that way, how would this make his family feel? How would this make the hospital feel? The taxpayers who are paying for this treatment, because it's not exactly cheap, how would they feel about it? That's somebody who could easily have his family be happy that he died, because personally, speak from a personal perspective, I feel
it's
that...
unusual for counsel to speak personally.
Yes,
Carry on,
I know, sorry. But you should think about it also in every perspective, because speaking as the council, you have to think of what the other people are going through, apart from all the legalities, because legally speaking, it can be wrong, but if in the case like Tony Blunt, he was granted to die after 3 years, so why can't we just make this process easier on everybody and finish it right now?
Yes, I hear what you say. I hope you understand as him and my anxieties about these points about money. I can imagine how it might be said in future. There was talk of austerity and cuts and so on, how I hope it would never happen, but some hospital might come to think, well, these are some expensive patients, these are some expensive patients, these are some expensive patients. Lord Heald said we could get rid of the expensive ones and so on. You understand my anxieties?
I understand what you're saying, but even though some are very expensive, I mean, treatments for cancer, I believe, are very expensive, the chemotherapy, the radiotherapy and all that, but those people have hope. They can get better, but with him, there is no hope.
No, you're saying that there's no benefit to
The government
Mr. Hughes,
or Mr. Hughes'
Mr.
family
Hughes,
or
let's go, yes,
Mr. Hughes.
from this continuing, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And therefore it's inappropriate to continue as such. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very
Had
much.
other submissions?
Pardon?
You had other submissions?
No, thank you.
He was glad. He was glad.
Thank you very much.
My Lord, I'm Hamza Beg, counsel for the NHS Trust.
Proceed.
My Lord, there's a lot of similarities in this case of Paul Hughes and Bland. Persistent vegetative state. Persistent vegetative state means he's not going to get better. The top of his spine has been severed from his brain, so there's no chance of him ever recovering. It was held in Bland, as you no doubt remember, my Lord, that it might be lawful to discontinue all life-sustaining medical treatment and support measures, including ventilation, nutrition, hydration, by aspirational means.
Yeah, basically I'm assuming feeding him and...
Yeah, feeding him
I'm
and...
not sure Mr. Hughes can breathe unaided, or... But anyway, yes, but feeding him he can't, so yeah, that's very right. So we'll call it giving him food and drink.
Giving him food and drink.
Artificial food and drink, perhaps that's it. Save the long words.
Any subsequent treatment given should be for the sole purpose of enabling him to end his life in dignity and free from pain and suffering. If the death should occur, its case should be attributed to the natural and no other causes from his state.
Yeah, so I follow the attractiveness of that summation from the NHS point of view. The difficulty surely though is that he, as things stand, he's being given food and drink, so his life will continue. And the moment you stop, then that's what means he will die. That will, if you don't stop, he will live. When you stop, he will begin to die. I think a colleague of yours was suggesting it might take him a few weeks.
Yeah.
But, so,
Well,
how am I going to attribute that to natural causes?
as I understand it, an organisation or a public body may be found to not have committed a negligent act by an omission in the same way that an individual might have.
Interesting, yes. Okay. Yes, you're going to say that this is an omission there?
Yes.
Interesting. Just explain a little more fully, please, for me, Mr. Begg. You say this will count as an omission, not a commission. How?
Well, it would be returning Mr. Hughes to the state when he arrived in the hospital. It would be as if he was how he was before. We omitted to do anything.
That's interesting. And I can see the use of the argument. But surely a hospital who, for example, they put stitches in someone, then they changed their mind and took the stitches out, so they were in the condition they were when they arrived at the hospital. Surely they would get into trouble for that. They decided that a patient couldn't pay the fees, so they took the plaster cast off their leg and so on.
I think this case is a little more different than.
Yeah,
I think it would.
mentioned how different.
It's in Mr. Hughes's interest. His family seem to think so. As I understand it, he was a very active man, and he would not like to be like this. Mr. Hughes is not a healthy man. He is not a healthy man. So, when my learned friend here has said about being a healthy, conscious person and it being illegal to kill them, he's totally right. But Mr. Hughes is not a healthy or conscious person. Yeah.
So you're distinguishing Mr. Carrington's cases.
Your Honour, I just grab something from
Oh, please feel free to bag, yes.
Your Honour, I understand that in R.V. Cox, Ognell said absolute prohibition on a doctor purposely taking a life as opposed to saving it. I say the doctors aren't intentionally taking his life, are they really? Because they're omitting it. It's not going to be an act. They're not going to kill him.
Yes, that struck me as an interesting submission, Mr. Beck, so to argue that it's an omission, not a commission. I follow that. But the act that's going to be done is presumably the detachment. I expect it's more sophisticated than a tube, but let's imagine it as they're going to detach the feeding tube. Now that's a positive act, surely?
Well, instead of unattaching a machine, think of it as withdrawing the machine. We're taking the machine away from you. We're going to unplug him from you, not unplug the machine from the wall. So it's an omission.
That's interesting. I think you need to rethink it as perhaps they're not continuing to feed him, perhaps. Would that help you, Mr. Beck, if you thought of it?
Yes.
They're not going to continue to feed him?
No, they're not going to continue the
You
food.
divide up the feeding into units in some way?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're going to omit to feed him. Interesting, yes, interesting. So you're calling it omission, they're not going to continue feeding because it's not in the best interest to do so. Now, I hear what you say about Mr. Carrington's. That must be a good approach for you to take, Mr. Beck, to distinguish Mr. Carrington's cases. But not all these cases were fit and healthy, were they? So Crown and Stone, which Mr. Carrington relied very much on, was about not getting food or medical attention for I'll quote his skeletal argument if I may. I don't know if you have a copy.
I do.
Failure to continue to supply food or procure medical attention.
I'm sorry, which point number is that?
I sort of said, thank you, quite right. Maybe I should have pointed you there. It says ground 2, number 7, Crown against Stone. Defendants convicted of manslaughter for the failure to continue to supply food or procure medical attention to an elderly and infirm but conscious woman.
I think the salient point there, my lord, is she was conscious. Right. Mr. Hughes is not conscious.
Okay. So yes, so fair enough. Yes, there was the consciousness, there was the hope of recovery, and so on. Presumably as well. Very good. Very good, Mr. Bell. Yes.
If I could just direct you to point number 10 of my opponent's argument.
Mr. Carrington,
yes. There is a very strong presumption which exists in the favour of preserving life. Withholding or withdrawing treatment can only be justified in the critical case where pain and suffering is likely to be suffered by the patient exceeds the benefit of preserving his life. Mr. Hughes's pain is, any reasonable person can see, is exceeding the benefit of preserving his life.
well, I mean, I think you have the medics on your side, Mr. Beck. Does he suffer pain? Is that a meaningful idea for someone in OPDS?
I think more than just physical pain. I think the pain of if he knew that what his family was going through, and the pain of him being like that when he was such an active person as well.
Yeah. So we're sort of stepping outside, as it were, for the reasonable observer. You're saying the reasonable observer looking at his situation would compare that. Interesting. Because you're saying presumably that in terms of the benefit, that's adopting the point I made to Mr. Carrington about well, what's the benefit of this? So no pain but no benefit. Yeah. That's in effect a submission. Please proceed, Mr. McGill.
We feel that it gives the patient a right to a dignified death rather than a preserved and agonising life. He's not going to get better, so he should be allowed to die with dignity. It should be his choice and his family's choice.
Yeah, so it's just the difficulty is that we don't know what he would have wished. We infer from his healthy lifestyle, I follow the logic of Langsberg, but
But as I understand it, my lord, him and his mother were very close, and his mother
Yeah.
expressed that wish.
yes, that's right. We should presumably trust a mother's understanding of her
Yes.
son's wishes. Yes, that's right.
Also, that it would give the family some closure on the situation and make them feel all right. At least they would be allowed to.
therapeutically, sort of psychologically therapeutic.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, you understand my worries I put to Mr. Heber about sort of slippery slope here.
Yes, I did
About
understand.
yes, I follow these as points here, but you can see in future cases it's said that, well, it would be psychologically beneficial to me if such and such of council, no present company included, of course, were to be, etc. Yeah. But nevertheless, yes, I follow that on these facts. These are additional factors, aren't they?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So supposing, put your hypothetical, Mr. Beck, supposing that his mother was opposed to withdrawal of treatment, what would your position be there? Just trying to test how much that weighs.
I think in these sorts of cases, we must side with the medical experts. They are the experts, and they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I think
That's
the
primary
families.
established, really, yes. Yes, it's professional medical expertise of doctors, yes. But nevertheless, it will have the benefit for the family as well.
And that's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Beck, very much. You asked for declaration, yes. Right, thank you very much. The council wish to address the council.